Hello and welcome back to making a 2D physics engine. Yeah. So, where am I up to today? What is you? Do I even want to know? Settings. What the hell is that icon? I have no clue what that is. Where am I going? Okay, so let's just jump into things. I can't be bothered trying to check out DLive, so hopefully my chat's all working with DLive, because I can't be bothered messing around with that site. Didn't seem to get a single viewer yesterday. That was the old one. So I messed around with this. Is it called Computer Jam? I think it is, isn't it? I messed around with it a little bit yesterday, didn't do anything fancy, I just did this. So with my rope thing I added other things which also did the rope thing. But it's only one thing interacting on the next thing and so on. It doesn't go backwards, so yeah. It'll basically just repeat this pattern it's doing right now until eventually they've all settled down. Because yeah, every bump to the side adds extra energy out of nowhere to the next one in the line. And the next one on the line doesn't pull back on the one above it, so it's pretty cool, because it's just like the smallest bump in any way. Oh, that was actually a pretty big bump, because I had zoomed out. But it's like the smallest bump when it all goes steady. It looks like it just moved it ever so slightly to the side, but then like it adds through all of the chains, so what was just a little slight bit to the side becomes 2 times more, like 4 times, 8 times, 16 times, all the way down to the bottom one. So it should have just been a subtle movement, but then it's like, blam! Just like subtle movement like that. And it's like added so much extra force to the bottom ones. I love it. I had one once that the tail part was flipping directions that it was rotating in, which is pretty cool. But anyway, there's no feedback, so it's not like an actual rope, it's just a chain of chaos. Even though it would be even more chaos if I had the feedback, but yeah. Like, look at that! That was crazy! It seemed to settle down really quickly that it was like, flip! Love it. Whoop. Oh, the world is messaging me on Facebook. Yeah. So what was I going to try? Oh yeah, I need to do the more advanced collision-y things so it can find where it will, like it can predict where collisions will happen rather than just... So to that end, I think I'm going to... I think I'm going to make it so I can see the trail that things had moved in. So I could visualize where it's going to be by... Hang on, this is a little bit more complicated. So I want to visualize where it's going to be on the next frame. And then with that as a thing, I can do the stuff to figure out if there was a collision. Just by stopping... what am I doing? This is getting outrageously complicated. So... because I just come back to that same problem. There are multiple forces here. And we need them all to go at once. So I need to divide the total amount of stuff it needs to do over time. If it's rotating, it'll take this long to do its full rotation. If it's moving, it's going to take this long to do its movement. Which really makes me feel like I need to get curves involved. And I haven't done anything with curves before. So I bumped inside. Um, so, where should I start? Should I just go step by step and then reach the problem and then have to recode everything probably? Or is there some way I could do... I don't know. Like, I feel like I could just pre-think about everything so I don't have to recode it all, but I haven't got a clue where to start. I haven't got the experience yet. So what do I want? We have an object, two objects, moving towards each other. I can work that out. No, I have one object moving towards another object. I can work that out. Two objects towards each other are more complicated, but I should be able to just loop it. Because they're both doing the same thing. So... no, that would be... I'd have to get where the... I'd have to get where the... What am I doing? Could I assume static? I think I could actually assume static. The second object is static. Because the second object will still have all of its vector information, and it knows... Or, like, it's still, So... Because the... How do I do that? So we've got two objects. They're moving towards each other. We know where they are. We know where they're going to be. We've got to work out if they will ever intersect those paths, but we don't know because it's over time. It could intersect, but later, so even though it's intersecting, it's not actually... it doesn't actually have a collision because it would have moved out of the way by then. So one thing I could do is I could just assume the other object is static. So we just checked one object's collisions, we checked the other object's collisions, assuming the one that it's being checked against is standing still. If one hits or the other hits, then there we go. But that means if you did the exact right thing and the frame rate was low enough, or you were moving quick enough, you could pass straight through something from one frame to the next, which should have collided, but didn't. Should draw. Draw anything. Where did you go? So, basically, I have a box, and I have another box, and this box is moving in that sort of a direction. Oh. Terrible line. Which makes it look like a cube. It is there, and it's going to be over here when it's moved. And then these are like the gaps between. So this corner would have moved from here to there, this one from here to there, that one there to there, there. So if this one was to move and on the next frame appeared anywhere within the total outline of all of this one, then we know that there probably was an intersection. There probably was a collision. But where does it appear? because this outer line would be like a scale. So it's like 50% of the way there, in which case 50% of its energy has been used to get it to there, and 100% to this one. So if it intersected 50% of the way through, then 50% of the energy is still within the cube for the translation, the vector. So it would hang on, I'm assuming stuff. So if we had things like drag, we know that it's going to lose momentum from here to there. So 50% of that loss has already occurred by that point. If it intersected at the 50% mark, then it still has 50% more of what it hasn't lost yet. So we know to add that into here, energy levels remain constant. But how do I know whereabouts it's going to be? I would have to get every point and draw a line from where it is where it's going to, and then do the same for this one, and to see if there was any intersections. Because I know where it is and where it's going to, I can find the location of the intersection and get the percentage of the way through it is for how much energy is gained or lost, I guess. Oh. Huh. Is that... Oh, wow. Okay. That actually seems like a much more efficient way of doing collisions than the way I'm currently doing it, because I'm basically doing the same thing to find the intersections. No, I am doing a more simpler way of that to tell if it's inside of a triangle. Because the way I tell if it's inside of a triangle is we have a triangle, we get one of the edges, let's say that top edge, which is basically like that. It has an angle of whatever amount. That's terribly drawn. So we want to get that angle, and then we want to rotate it around by that angle. I don't even know what I'm drawing. We want to rotate it around that angle so it's flat, and then we want to get the point that we're checking to see if it's on the inside or the outside, and also rotate that around the origin pivot point, which will just be one of these corners, by the same amount, and then we can just check to see if it's above or below. The way I do collisions is the same step, and I have the point, is it above or below? Is the other one above or below? Because we've got two lines. If it is both above and below, then that is one true. Then we do the same thing again, but relative to the other line, and if these 2 points are above and below that line, then we have an intersection. To find the intersection, we then find the ratios between how much of it is above and how much is below. We know the total length of the line, we know where 0 is, which should be like the relative straight line would be the 0. It's either going to be negative or positive above that. If we find the ratio of how much is above and below, we can then find the intersection point of this other line, because it's going to be the same ratio. If 50% is above, 50% is below, then we know that the second line intersects in the middle. Or vice versa, so we can find the intersection for both. I'm just doing it for one side though, because you don't really need it for the second one. Because originally it was just used for texture coordinates for the Doom engine. You just have to know where in the X it is for which row of pixels you're grabbing from the texture. And the distance away for the scale for perspective. So, I am really amazed I actually remember all this. That's crazy. Still no views? I feel like I should have had a blip by now. It's not Facebook. Mm-hmm. Oh, God. So, Yeah, so also rambled about, okay, so if I try to do that for the collisions, then I have a triangle, and then I have where the triangle's going to end up, and I can do this from the lines. I really just want the absolute outsides of it, though. That's the... If I can separate out just that information, then this would be a whole lot easier, because I... No. Yes? No. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I just need to know the most outside lines. Let's draw that in a different color. Blue. Terrible blue. So hard to see for some reason. So if I have that, and I don't know, let's say we had some other object that was passing through it, we could see that this line is intersecting one of these, but only have to check the outside ones. No. Maybe? What if this was a really big object? I don't want to have to check every single outside line. I just want to check the ones in the relevant locations. What if it was a convex sort of a shape? No. Because if I get the most outside ones, other than the very two at the bottom, so if I just got like this line and that line, if it intersected one of those, then we could get time. If it's just no. No, it would also have to get these front ones, because, because there would still be, like, say it intersected, like, way up here, there would still be the pyramid-y part on the top of it. So if it intersected in here, even though it's intersecting with this line at that point, it's actually going to be intersecting at this point. So how do we tell that if it us? How can we tell if it hit there? Because if this line was a shorter line, only going to here, it intersects in time, but in the wrong time. Ah, because we got two lines here. It's the ratio thing again. So we know how long this line is, and we know how long that line is. We divide it by how much time passed from the start to the end. We know where this point is. And we know where that point is. So... Wait, no, hang on. We know where it intersected relative to the entire time of this thing. Then we could get the ratio and have it intersect at the same... or mark a point at the same time within here, which, I don't know, say it's about there. So, at that time, for whatever this object is, and at that time for this object, which would be this green triangle thingy here, did those two shapes intersect? No. So then we could just ignore this entire intersection. It did not happen in any way that matters. Okay. So that just sort of breaks down at this point, because this end part is also moving across to go to here. But I might have an intersection going to that part of it, which it hasn't detected because it's not crossing the very end line and it's not crossing the edge line. But it would be crossing this line in here at the end. Oh, it's raining. How nice. I was so hoping for rain earlier today. I was trying to sleep on the daytime, and for whatever reason, they made a mistake on the cement building that they're building next door, and they had to jackhammer their way, I'm assuming, through the second story to the first story. And my house is like right on level with the window, and it was like an echo chamber, just echoing this excruciatingly loud jackhammer. Oh, so painful trying to sleep. You just couldn't sleep. But I was like already half asleep, so just took all my effort to not put in too much effort to stay at that level of sleep, which is a lot of effort. But if you put in too much effort, then you just wake up. So, what am I doing? So how am I going to work out where it would be if there was an intersection at this point? Because it's only at the very end of the line would it be this line here. Oh. I can't get time from that line because it's the end part. So... how could I work this out? So, one way is if it did hit this end part, then I could find out where the end of this line is, and draw a new line back up to where it originally was. So if I went back up to wherever it intersects with the original object... Terrible lines, what is up with my drawing? This grid's messing me up. Where it intersects with the original object, I could then get the length of this line and compare it to the length of the total distance over time, and that again would give me a percentage to figure out how far, like how much time it would take for it to go from here to there, and would it be at that location at the time of this intersection. Okay. In this case... Oh yeah. Then we could get the difference between the amount the amount that is inside of this outside one to the length of that, because this line is the same amount of time as this line would be if it was 100% of the amount of time, but it's not going to be. It's going to be a bit shorter. So if I could work out how much shorter it is, then I could work out whereabouts this line would have come to by the time that had gotten to here, which again is not accurate. Damn it. Because it's a sloped surface. If it was parallel to this line, then that would be right, but it's not. So by the time this point is at that location, this object would have still been some distance away. And again, it's not... I mean, it's better, but the faster you're going, or whatever, the more this error is going to be a thing. Okay, so that doesn't quite work. How do I work out where it would be at what time? I don't know where the time is. I know where it's going to be, where it was. And I need to work out if there was an intersection at some time. I don't know when, and I don't know where. I just know an area where it could be. But I can't like increment it at any time to see if it did intersect, because that would be infinite amount of places it could have intersected at. So how do I get it to tell me where it is without having to try to find it? What was that? Okay. What if... Hmm. Oh. Okay. I think I was basically on it. I just overcomplicated it. So I have how much length is off the... the thing just whipping around there. I have how much length is off the edge here, and I have where it intersected. So this is how much time ago, or how much time there was a possibility of an intersection. So I know the direction this is going, and I know the direction that is going. So if I just move this back, and I move this out, at what point does it stop intersecting? And that would be the time and location. Okay. But... this is just dealing with triangles. The problem here is I wanted to do that compound outside one with this, but I wouldn't be able to do that with it, because if I had some sort of a shape that was like that or something, I would have to account for this hole. So I wouldn't be just checking against this one triangle, which is either inside or outside. I'd have to check against a shape like this, but we don't know inside or outside. We just have to check to see if there's an intersection, which there would be. And as we move it back, yeah, it would just be to an edge of it. It wouldn't be to the volume of it. So I really need some sort of a better way to check the volume of a arbitrary shape. I don't know what this sort of shape would be called. A shape that doesn't fit a convex hull. A non-convex shape. Okay. So... yeah. And that's what my triangle thing is. That's how I work out if it's within a shape. By just filling the shaped triangles and seeing if we're inside or outside any of the triangles. But if I do this with the big shape, then this big shape could be absolutely massive, containing thousands of triangles, and that would just cause lag, massive lag, because it would have to check each and every individual triangle. No. I could get it so it only checks triangles along a line. So, we know where the... oh, it wouldn't be a line. It would be like whatever that is. So, if it happens to be intersecting, like it would be over to here, then we know it would be anywhere between that point and that point. So any triangles within that strip. It wouldn't be able to collide with anything else, unless the object was also rotating. In which case... it would be, instead of doing that, it would be something along the... try to do a curved line, and I draw a straight line. It could be something along the lines of that. Didn't quite do that right, but whatever. So anything within that strip. I feel like I could also take into account other information, and I could probably get that to be like a cone or whatever. So it starts off thin and then gets thicker up into that part. Because we know it's moving away, so it could be anywhere between here and there. And then it gets... oh, wait. I mean, I could just do it as a single line then, couldn't I? So yeah. It'll be like that. Because we know where this location would be. If we just traced where it would be going if it moved outwards with the rotation of this relative to nothing, so we don't worry about location information. No. Whatever. We just trace a line. The same way I was doing the mechanical gears and stuff. then we could get anything that that line happened to intersect, and those are the only shapes that it could ever intersect with. Oh, but then again, because we have when it entered and when it exited, when it entered and when it ended, we could literally just check this curve against anything. So anything within this curve would have had an intersection. Okay. So, did it intersect with anything? Between where it final was and where... Okay, but then that gets into the whole curve things. I don't know, I don't have any sort of a clue how I could work out the intersection between two curves. I feel like this is a perception shift or whatever, a paradigm shift. A curve is just a bent straight line. Which means if I know what the bend is, instead of bending the line, I can bend everything else, and then it's just a straight line with things moving in a curve around it. But then we just changed what the curve was. Yeah. Yeah. That's my problem. I get it to work with translations within reasonable accuracy, I feel. I don't know, there's probably another hole in this thinking that I haven't thought of. But I feel like it's all there, it's all pretty good. Other than the fact it needs to loop quite a lot of times. So... What do I do? Do I have to work out a curve formula? Curves are my weakness. Because they have to do with sine and cos, I bet. That's the secret to doing that one. It'd probably be like sine or cos over time. We know what the time is, we know what the curve is. Well, we know what the curve is, so we know where it is over time. We put that through the cos sine thing, and we'd be able to determine where it is at that time. But no, we need a range. No. So if we just passed the data through the opposite of whatever sine or cos thing I use, then those would be my lines, just whatever the line measurements are, sine or cos. Maybe? I don't know, that's what I imagine. I still have literally no idea what sine and cos even mean. I mean, I've seen the pictures of animations and stuff from it, but that's about it. Just like pi in a circle. Sine and cos is just a rotation on a circle from a number. I don't even know what that means. What does the numbers mean? Is it just converting degrees to radians? Or radians to degrees? I don't know. Should I implement just the translation one? Because this is going to take like probably all day, if not multiple days, just for that one alone. And I feel like I'm probably going to have to recode the whole thing for the rotations to be a thing. Unless, can I just assume not rotations? I mean, I could just... I don't have to be 100% accurate at this thing, as long as it works, I guess. But that's the question. Will it work? I mean, we won't have any intersections, but I feel like there'll be clearly a noticeable difference in stuff happening. So I could just assume. So instead of doing it like that, we would have its final rotation. We'll do that one as red. Yeah, we'll have its final rotation. So this one to that one to this one to that one. I mean, that doesn't quite work out. What if it was just doing a 360? That's the worst case scenario, I guess. No, if it was upside down. Hang on, what am I doing? So I want that one to go there, this one to go there. So if it was like that, then that goes to there, this goes to here, and that one, no, what? All the lines would have to be the same length. No, they wouldn't. Rotations break that. Yeah. That works, right? So that one there. I feel like that one would have gone to the top one. Hang on. So if that one was there, then this one goes to here, and that one goes over there. Okay. Oops. So if we rotate it one more time, no, that's the same time. Wait, was it? Hang on. What am I doing? Yeah, I don't know. Something like that is the point, though. That means if I had... It wouldn't be able to tell the intersection to places like that. Unless I did bounding box stuff, maybe? So that's what it would look like if it rotated 90 degrees between this location and that location. I don't know why this confuses me so much. Yeah, so if this rotated 90 degrees, this one... Oh, 180. That one would be there. That one would be there, and this one would be here. Yeah, that's how that would work. Okay. So instead of doing that, what if I just did the... sort of like, the most... That means I got to do that thing to work out the direction of the triangle again. So if I did this... So we know what the most right is, the most left is, in the relative translation of where it's going. Then we have all of the information we need for the bounding box thing. Whoops. Oh, my lines are terrible. Guess because I'm sitting slightly sideways. Anyway, but now if I had an intersection that led into this part, we have a bit of a problem. It sees it as an intersection, but how would I tell if it actually intersected? Or more so where it would intersect. No, I think that's just going back to the curve thing again. I'll do the weird curves. Okay. So otherwise, I guess it would look like this? Okay. I mean, well, if I'm only dealing with triangles, it's a little easier, I guess. But if I did something like that, and it intersected with any point, then I would know what edge that belonged to. And could figure out whereabouts in the... Get out of here, Katana. Whereabouts in the translations that stuff would have happened. So if I intersected that part there, I know the edge between here and there belonged to this blue line from the top to bottom part. I know where it starts, I know where it stops, I know where this percentage is relative to those start to stop places to know whereabouts it hit this line. Now I know whereabouts in time it is. What do I do? I mean, because I can't go back to where that is, because that's going to be at some weird angle like this. So I'd then be checking intersections between this, I guess? I mean, technically, I could work out then if it was a collision, but it wouldn't be entirely accurate. But it would notice something. I don't know. Hey, I got a reply from a guy. I wasn't expecting that. I sent this guy like this massive wall of text. I want to know what he says. He still sent me a lot though. I won't read it right now. Okay. So the actual angle, the actual way this would look if I was using curves would probably be something along now, so these ones are crossed over. Something like that, I think? No, hang on, what are we doing? So from the origin point of one object to the other one, we're moving along that. So this spins around and goes to the top, and then if we stretch that over time... Well, I mean, I know this one's simple. It'd basically be like that. I got too much of a curve on the end, but whatever. And this one would probably go... No, I think that was right. Something like that, maybe? And that one would just be a curve over. No, again. Because that's putting a big hole in the side here. Which is sort of... I don't know. Let's use Blender. How do we do this? That's just like really big. And that's also not a triangle, whatever. What? Merge. How do I do things again? Center. Origin geometry. Doop. There we are. So if I wanted this to move down by like 2, oops. Rotate 180. Okay. No, let's actually do that. Nope, damn it. Alright, so you can sort of see it does skip past the thing. Can I do this? No, it keeps the, I wanted to delete this stuff. Nope. Okay. Oh, because it's, I need to delete every other keyframe. Anyway, you get the point. So it does have that gap there. And it does sort of do the round up and down thing. It's nowhere near as exaggerated as I was trying to do it. So it does sort of make a big gap over this side, but nowhere near as much as I was showing it as. Anyway, so if I could get those curves, work out the intersection point, I could then work out what location and rotation would be at that time, check for intersections, have the intersection, I could then do the math. That's what I need to be able to do the full, proper thing of this, I think. This grid is really annoying, isn't it? I don't know how terrible that probably looks on the stream. Probably makes things near impossible to see. Where's something? Was that better? Sort of. Alright, nobody's here anyway. Could be too early, could be too late. Maybe I'm not even streaming and the whole thing's bugged out. Maybe I do have viewers and I just don't know. Maybe it's because I haven't been going for long enough. Maybe it's the day. Maybe it's the time. Maybe it's Maybelline. No viewers over here. Apart from my imagined assortment of bots. Any people viewing on live edu? I mean, not that site. DLive. I both have live in it. Oh, is that different? No, it's showing me like a smaller streamlined version of the site. It doesn't say I've got any viewers. Okay, how long have I been going for? I'm not getting tired now. It's just a sleep thing, whatever. I'll go for it till at least an hour, I guess. And then I might research the curve things or something, I don't know. So... where did it go? There it is. Yep. But I imagine the curves are going to be complicated. This is going to be happening to every single triangle in the thing. So, I don't know. I guess I could backtrack the curve thingy from the point, as I was saying, and then literally just work out everywhere that it would intersect with in time and space. But no, maybe I only need to do this once. No, I need to do it twice. I mean, the calculations for all the curves only needs to be done once. So maybe I can turn the curves into some sort of an objecty sort of thing. But then as I was saying, it would be nice if I could do some sort of a compoundy sort of shape. So if I was trying to do a square, that's two triangles. But I don't want to check two triangles as if they both move separately. I'd rather just check the outside of the box. Because we're only checking for intersections here. So if I did the curve thing, it's just like there's an intersection there, and there was an intersection here. So I would just go to that exact location, I guess. And as long as all the math and numbers are perfect, and it was equal to stuff, then... Because I need to work out... No. I could work this out, couldn't I? There's two intersections. One of them is going to be entering and the other one's going to be exiting, if we're just going from the bounding box shape. So if I did something like... it's the opposite of what I drew last time. So if I did something like that, and we had a curve going through, we know it starts on the outside. Yeah, let's just assume it is always on the outside. No, we can't assume that, can we? If the object was originally created on the inside by some accident or something, this would be a problem. Okay. So I need two different types of collisions? This would be a dynamic collision. Oh, that's probably why they have that. Oh, what do you know? That's probably why game engines have static, dynamic, and rigid body collisions. No. There was static, which is still... rigid, which I guess doesn't have rotations. Static, rigid, and dynamic. So dynamic would have rotations. So this is assuming two dynamic collisions. A static collision to a dynamic, or a static to a static, would be different. Because if it was two statics, then it would just be this. We don't have to do both curves. Okay. And that would greatly optimize the performance to any sort of static object collision such as ground and stuff. Huh. Okay. So I could do that. So basically I just assume static for all objects when they're spawned in or something like that, and if it's inside of something we can move it outside pretty easily before we enable the rigidness of it, or the dynamicness. For the rigid stuff, it's just simply moving around left, right, up, and down, so that could be the basic box collision-y things. We don't have to worry about the curving parts, it'll all just be straight lines this way, straight lines that way. Okay, so maybe I do want to do these collision types, and it's actually how that's supposed to work. Okay. I should write this stuff down. Where's my auto charty thingy go, which also never crashed again today. That's nice. Especially since it doesn't look like I saved it. Makes that error go away. So let's just make a little bit of a list here, shall we? So we have static, dynamic, rigid. I feel like that's the wrong word. It's not rigid as in bumpy. Vendor knows. Because that's how I know these things exist. Other than I probably would have just worked it out at some point, even if I didn't know. Somewhere around here, yeah. Position bands. Static, yeah. So static, dynamic, and rigid, there it is. Oh, it is rigid. You know. That one spelled wrong? No. That one is. Static, not static. Static, dynamic, and rigid. No ick to that one. Yeah. It's also got character, no clue what that is. Navigation mesh, which, you know, that's a nice one. I can only assume towards what that would be. I've never used the navigation meshes. But I just assume it basically creates a grid out of the geometry within the mesh. So a triangular grid. And then it can do generic pathfinding, sort of like the ones that I use. Distance checking, what was it called? Like A sharp or something? I don't know what it's called. I just made it up as I go along. That's just what people tell me it's called. Sensor would be... What? Okay. I don't understand what that one's supposed to be. A collider? Oh, really? They have a colliders? Oh, damn. Oh, I gotta post about this. Um, Blender. I haven't talked to some programmer guy about colliders. He was trying to figure out how to create them. No, that's the wrong Blender group. What was I? What am I doing? So yeah. So static, dynamic, and rigid would be the types of stuff going on. So a dynamic is basically just a static that moves in X, Y, and a rigid has rotations, yeah. So when we spawn in an object, we can, if we spawned an object within a static, it would be a dynamic and then bounce away to be outside of it and not colliding with things. If we spawned a static within a static, then neither of them are going to move. A dynamic within a dynamic, then they both move away 50% of the distance. And then a rigid would just be a dynamic until it's outside of it, and then it can be add the rotation forces into it, because you can't rotate if it's, you know, Tater's going to Tate. It's got to have something to rotate around, or, you know, some sort of a force to add rotation, yeah. And it won't have that when it's fully inside of another object in a way that shouldn't physically be possible. Okay. So what do I do? So a static to a dynamic. That's what I want to do. And then a static to a static. Okay. I mean, a dynamic to a dynamic. I don't know why I feel like I should have this the other way around. I just see it in my head as that order. So, yeah, we're not worrying about rotations. Let's just make dynamic... That word looks weird now. Dynamic rotations... dynamic collisions, without any rotation information. And when that's a thing, I can have a rigid to a dynamic. And that will require the curve stuff. Okay. So in that case, dynamic to static, I only need to worry about one side of the space over time thing for the intersection information. Without the rotations, we're not worried about curves. Without a second dynamic, we're not worried about time over time ratios. Okay. I think I might just go now. I ain't got no viewers, so I got no motivation on my motivation numbers for how willing I am to do this thing right now. Unless somebody happens to be here. In which case I may try to continue. If there ain't no viewers, then I'll just come back later. Although it is late already. I think this was like the prime time yesterday. Or is this after the prime? No. Maybe I'm too early, maybe I'm too late. Either way, I can't be bothered. But hey, I got a plan. That's more than I had when I started earlier. Let's actually get a screenshot of a thing that I could use for this. So yeah. I shall do that. So a line and another line. We know this one intersected at that location, this one intersected at that location. Whatever. So that far along this one would have been the same distance along this one that isn't an intersection. But this far down this one would be like this far down that one. That would have intersected both lines. But why does this matter? I don't know. Oh. Yeah. So I would have the time, then I know where to move my object to, move both objects to that relative point in time. This is two dynamics though. So not even worrying about that. So this would simply be an object like that, and an object an object like that. So that intersected at that point. We now have time. Wait, no, we don't need to do the time thing. Not with this one. So we just simply know where our intersection is now. That's that. Yeah. So rather than the way I was doing it currently, which is if any point of this happens to be inside of a triangle, which would be my static to static. So I've already done static to static. It's if any point of any line of this is intersecting that. If it's just intersecting once, then it's inside. If it's intersecting twice, then it went inside to outside. But it doesn't matter, because if it's a static object, any intersection is a collision. Wait. Let's actually use triangles for one thing. There's another problem. What if this was just moving... Hang on. What if this was a shape like that, and it was moving directly down? Or whatever. So the points... that's terrible. So it was moving like this. The lines don't actually intersect, but its final location would have. So I think I got to do the opposite with this. Oh, wait, no, that was that one. Oh, okay. No. I mean, for this, I could. So that's what I was saying before, is I'll just fire a ray back along to find out where it intersects. But that's basically exactly the same as saying, oh, okay, so I already optimized it. So the other alternative would just be to do the same thing with this one, and to see where it intersects, or see if any of the points intersect. So this one becomes the static and that one becomes the dynamic. Did it intersect? And then switch it. Did it intersect? But instead of doing that, if I did it this way, because there's no rotation, I can see that only this point has the possibility of intersecting. Or I know that this point is going to intersect at some point. So that way I can find out exactly... I don't have to check the other two. Optimizations. Okay. So if there's any intersections across that line, any intersection across that one, any intersections across this one. I mean, technically I don't need to do that one. So I could also do the translations for, I mean, because essentially, this is a box. And why does that matter? The point is I could just ignore this one because it doesn't actually go anywhere that wouldn't have already been checked by other points. So I can ignore that one because this one will be covering anywhere that happened to be. Yeah. No. Wait, there was a problem. No, there wasn't. Okay. How do I tell that this is the point on the inside? That's a problem. I mean, that could be a solution, just make a triangle with its final location, but no. Well, actually, no, that's not a problem. I can see which one it is, because for this to be the case, either one of these side pieces is going to be on the inside, or no side pieces on the inside, and one corner is going to be on the inside of this, which means this line is going to be intersecting two edges. If I know what those two edges are, I can just find the point in common. There we go. Okay. So yeah, the problem was, if I translated the rotation of this object relative to the vector direction it's moving in, and then get the same code that I was running to get the clockwise direction or anti-clockwise, whichever direction I went, for the points to have the normals around the right way, I would be able to get the leftmost and rightmost and the bottommost and not care about the topmost, or the left and the right, or the top, left and right, ignore the top. I only need the left and right, because there's always going to be one that is going to be passing through the interior of the object that's already been checked. It's not going to be any place that it doesn't know about. Okay. So by doing that, I could get this. But I think I could actually optimize this even further by doing the compoundy thing. God, here I was saying I was going to go, now I've just gone a whole lot more. So if I did the compoundy thing, I could do 3 triangles and do all possible checks with those. No, I wouldn't even need to do 3 triangles. I would only need to do this outside-y thing. Because this could also be a more complex shape. So, if I just had the outline of this thing, I don't care about the shape of that. So just the outline of this, outline of that. But this makes it more complicated for the extreme things, because I only need the ones that would be covering... No. Maybe. In this case, I only need the leftmost and rightmost, and the bottommost. But this could be a more complicated shape. Whatever. So these are all edges. So I want up to the leftmost and rightmost. So what can I do there to ignore certain things? So I only need the bottom part of it. So the shadow of it. Okay. So I would need the rightmost and the leftmost. And then the bottom part ignoring the top part. Hello. Is that a new name? I don't think I've noticed that name before. I'm just going to go through theory stuff at the moment. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to start coding this until later. I'm somewhat tired. I had a terrible sleep today. But hey, I'm making progress. Just later. I try to work out how to do the collision of a dynamic to a static object in a most optimal way. Let me know if you want the whole rundown of how everything's supposed to be working. So how do I get the bottom part and not the top part? How do I know the bottom from the top? The leftmost and the rightmost. I could draw a line and get all vertices under the line. Relative. That means rotations. I feel like that's more problem. Okay. I have got no clue what I'm doing either, so don't worry about it. I'm just making this up as I go along. I literally didn't even finish school. Not as if that actually means anything, it appears. Talked to a friend about that earlier today. It's like, I know people who have finished school, college, university, and they still seem very not smart, to put it bluntly. Like, the things they've supposedly learned in these courses are not translating to actual knowledge in any sort of a subject. They just sort of went there and did the motions. Came out the other side and just dropped the books and walked away. Yep. Anyway, I could do that. That means I've got to do a translation thing to just do the top and bottom part to make it easy, and then I would have all of the bottom parts. I then need to get it in an order, so I can connect the dots. No? Yes? Maybe? Well, if I have everything less, I could get that information by getting any edge with a single face, because that would be an outside one, and then just mapping from one side to the other. It will only ever be a line. It will never have any branching parts, unless it had an edge with two not inside faces, in which case I could just ignore that, because it's not a real mesh. Okay. There we go. Trace down the things. As soon as one has an intersection, we know that it's intersecting with this other mesh. We can then... No, I'll have to do it with all of them. That one would be found first, but this one's closer. Damn it. I was hoping to skip that. That would have been the same triangles anyway. And I would have needed to check all triangles. Oh, okay, so this is definitely a more optimized way. Ah, okay. So I'll do that, find the intersection which is the closest along the time. I would then know, not along the line, I would then know what time it intersects and how much time was left. I could then get how much of the energy was spent to get to that location, and then reverse it, the remainder, if I wanted to bounce it away. Divided by absorptions. It'd be 100% if it was like rubber, and 0 if it was a sponge. Not worrying about sinking into it. Density, that's the word. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out where exactly the two objects collide and how much force is remaining. Or what force it was going at that time, because it could still be accelerating due to gravity. So it hasn't done the full 9.8 acceleration, because that's over a certain amount of time it accelerates to 9.8, over 1 unit or whatever. This would be less than 1 unit by that much, so I would... Oh, I didn't even think about that stuff. Wait, do I do that? Is that why I added gravity half before and half after? Huh. The more you know. Have I finally figured out that damn reason? Okay, I'm assuming that's how gravity works. I ain't got no clue. So, yeah. But the point is for reflecting back, because if I don't know that information and it just stops when it does the collide thing and then just turns around and goes in the opposite direction on the next frame, then it's going to bounce away with basically what seems to be more speed. So it's further away, or not as far away as it should have been. So it looks like it clunked and then like stopped and then went away, which is just weird. It wouldn't look right. So you need to do that to work out how much of energy to reflect. Anyway. Oops. Yeah, I made a tutorial-y thingy about a... if you want to see a more simple thing. Did I actually do a good job on that tutorial? I can't remember. But I wanted to do like a whole series of tutorials, but I'm so out of practice and nobody seemed to care about my streams, so... if I got no people to view, then what's the point of making tutorials that nobody will find? I don't know what that is. Where's my YouTube? There it is. The only one, but icon. Oh wait, no, there's just a link down here, isn't there? If you just scroll down on Twitch, blam, there we go. Oh, I've only got the final code. Whatever. Well, you can see it on my website. Where'd you go? Has that actually got more viewers? 165. Wow, that's actually more than I expected. No comments though. Where'd the Twitch thing go? I'm already on it. What? It's all JavaScript. What am I doing? Website. Where'd you go? This is my physics thing so far, I just made like a rope. I got triangle collisions against static objects working. That's what I did yesterday. That goes to the thing, not the right thing. What's my chat system? I hear the bloops, but I don't see the messages. Oh, okay, cool, thanks. Wait, did that... Oh, is that live? Is that D-Live? Hey, I'm gonna be on D-Live. Did I miss messages from D-Live? All my windows are messed around now. OOP? What do you mean by that? I have well too many windows open, it's hard to find things. There you are. Hey, it was a follower on D-Live. Great, nice to see that side isn't dead. Over here, that over there, this chat open over here. There we go. Object-orientated is, as far as I understand, a very sort of complicated thing. JavaScript is object-orientated. C++ and C and all that sort of stuff is all object. It's all OP programming. What isn't an object-orientated programming language is something like binary or machine code. Things where you literally have to specify locations in memory and stuff like that. You don't really have to do that. You can do that, but you don't have to do that with C. You have variables and things. You could just say A is this. And you don't have to worry about where in memory A is going to be and how big and all that sort of junk. Just A is A. It's whatever you tell it to be. I mean, you tell it the size, but you don't tell it exactly where in memory. Anyway, I think that's what object-oriented programming is. It's confusing. Lots of different people will tell you different things depending on stuff. It seems to have somewhat different definitions. I'm the... what do they call that? I'm the academic programmer. I just make it all up as I go along. Now, where was I going? What was I doing? Oh yeah, I was trying to show off this thing. Which is why that's there. Oh, actually, was it just there? Funspray. So this is basically the end result of that tutorial if you scroll down. So just blank canvas, and if you click or press spacebar, I'm not sure which way around it is, you just fire particles. And they bounce around the screen off the edges and stuff. There's extra stuff you can do, like you can add gravity to it so they fall down and just bounce around the ground. You can make them more bouncy or less bouncy so they just plonk down on the ground, or they bounce back up with more force, maybe, if you want it to be. I don't know. It's also got the Browning effect, which is it's slowing down over time, or a simulation of air resistance without the simulation. The amount, the color, you can change the colors. I go over a whole lot of different things you can use to customize within the tutorial thingy. Towards the end, it sort of fell apart a bit, because I was trying to do the tutorial as a live stream, so I was rushing through it, doing it as a tutorial as quick as possible, so it didn't take forever, while also having a live stream where you can see people commenting on what I was saying at the time. So if somebody had some sort of a question, they could ask it within the tutorial, rather than me answering outside. But, you know, I just had the usual people in there, if I remember right. And towards the end, it sort of fell apart a bit. I actually forgot to do a number of things within it as well. But hey, yeah, any good questions, you can always just ask. Particles everywhere. Yep. That's that. So what was I doing? Just rambling about stuff. So that should be that. I should fire the intersection, be able to bounce it off. This will work with convex shapes, because everything's made out of triangles with the collision stuff. And okay. Well, it's an object as in all the information is stored in a whatever it is. It's a whole, like, this is what this one structure is. This is my original one. Or it's a remake of the original one, I can't remember. Yeah. It's like that. Okay. Why is that so empty? It's not that old, is it? Or whatever. The particles have mass, they have their current location, and the vector for the direction I'm moving in. This is all commented out. Yes, that. Why am I doing a random thing from the... Oh, this is the wrong file. Because I quit that tab. Okay, there we are. This is the proper one. So the final thing looked a little bit more like this, except I think this is a lot more lines than it should be. Yeah, this is a whole heap of other stuff too. As I said, the final one's only like 130 lines or something. The one in the tutorial. This has got my preloader and whatever things. It's got my viewport system, all sorts of extra junk it doesn't need. Wow, am I actually doing proper objects with this one? My fancy version of them? Yeah, this one's not a good example. Add particle. So it's got a location, elasticity, size, vector, lifetime, color. Oh, I have a good thing to show this off, actually. What one would this be? Probably just a randomly named thing. Was just within the games pack? I think it might be here. No, I don't have layers. I don't know, I had this really nice, awesome looking flowchart showing off how it all ties together. For some reason it doesn't appear to be in here. Should be near the top somewhere, I imagine. It wasn't that long ago, was it? Huh. Well, I seem to have lost it. This is it. Eh, there it is. No, that's the snake. There we go. There it is. So, if you're still there, this is basically how the whole thing ties together. Although this is a more complicated version of it. I did simplify this. I did save it, right? Actually, I probably just show it off at the beginning of the other thing. In the beginning of the tutorial. Whoops. I don't know what I just did. Well, anyway, if you're still there and want me to explain to you what all of this is, let me know. I really like it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I combined it together so it was like a perfect square. Anyway, so what was I rambling about? I think that's pretty much it. So that's how I'd have static to, dynamic to static, static to static, and then I just need, I don't know. Okay. So how should I continue this? What exactly am I going to code next time? So I've got triangles, and I can tell if a triangle is inside or outside of another triangle and tell it to stop, so I can tell a basic collision with that, but that's basically two static objects. I feel like the next thing I should do before I get into the dynamic stuff is make two static objects move away from each other so they are... No, that would be a dynamic thing, wouldn't it? Because the static one stays still, the dynamic one would be the one that moves outside. You would never have a static to static collision. Okay, so Static objects don't have a collision check. Okay. And if a dynamic one checks all things, so I probably need some sort of priority system for this, because this sounds like I'm going to be looping through it in a different sort of a way. Well, it doesn't really matter, because a collision is a collision. It will be updating the collision for both objects involved at the time of the collision, so there you go. Wait. Did I do this stuff before? Yeah, when I made Pong, I was doing all this stuff. Whatever. There's the ball on Pong. If it hit a wall, it had to bounce off realistically, but then if it hit a wall that led it into another wall within the same frame, it then had to update both of them. And I just assume there'll always be a distance between it, so it just keeps looping until it eventually runs out of energy. That's right. Although there could be problems in that which was causing server errors. So, what was I rambling about? I don't know, I don't need a priority system, it's just looping through. It'll be doing it all in the one frame, it'll all be fine. So yeah, dynamic objects is the next things I need to create. And then I have to have the dynamic object move outside of the static one. So, figure out a way to do that. I imagine it's just going to be adding a vector force in a direction away from the origin point of the triangle. I could do it that way, or I could go to the closest edge. That would be a bit more of a complicated way. How would I work that one out? I don't know. So let's just go out in the direction away from the origin of the middle of the triangle. Okay, so the next step after that is I'll do compound stuff. So the same thing again, but with compound shapes, which will just be looping through, doing it over and over again. I might do some optimizations after that, because I could do the whole grid stuff for checking for collisions with certain things, because it'll have to be checking all of one object against all of another one. All vertices of all faces against all vertices of all faces of the other one, which is a lot. Probably 3 times more almost than it needs to. But that's what I need to do to check to see if it's interior, inside of the other shape. Okay. And then I guess I'll just be adding up all of the vectors from it trying to push out. How would that work? Would that actually work? I imagine... no. Okay, if it's a compound shape, then it will be moving out away from the center of mass. Okay. Unless a constant force is being applied. In which case I could have it move out in the direction of the constant. Like gravity, so it'll always move up to get out of an object. I don't know. No, I wouldn't do that. Or would I? Okay, it would move away in the direction of the vector of the object that is dynamic. That'll work. Which would be gravity if only gravity was applied. But if you were jumping into a wall sideways, your vector would be going sideways, so it would push you back out. Otherwise, it would be pushing you up, and you would clip up to the top of a wall, rather than hitting the wall and being pushed out again. That would work. Okay. And... anything else? Well, I guess that'd be that. That'd be the dynamic to static. So then I'd just do dynamic to dynamic, but that's probably a couple of days away now. And then I gotta figure out the rigids and those curves, which I'm not entirely sure about. This is well advanced math than I am normally capable of, so... well, I mean, all of it's more advanced than I'm normally capable of. Anyway. Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a problem. I don't think I'm going to be able to simply Google how to do that. I'm not going to be able to work it out myself. I don't know. I'll just do a whole lot of research and things. I'm pretty sure that sine and cos are probably the key to my problems, so I'm just going to have to research those. Anyway, I assume everybody's left now. Yeah, okay. Where are the windows? There you are. So, I think I'm going to go now. I just realized I didn't put any music on. Yeah. I may be back on later today. I may not be. I don't know. I got a bit of a headache now from thinking too hard about all this stuff. But I've got a plan for what I'm going to do next, and I'm probably going to immediately forget what that plan is and spend the first half an hour of tomorrow or next time ranting about it. I don't remember what I was doing. So, moving away a dynamic from a static, so I got to build the dynamic static system. Whatever. Okay, thanks, bye.